Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Oregon Fan Show, the podcast where we talk with Duck fans and college football experts about the things that make us want to shout. Our guest this morning is Scott Reid, author and creator of Duck Sports Central, a contributing writer and analyst for Ducks Rising. Scott, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Wonderful. I am fired up, man. It is Bill Musgrave days until Oregon football.
Or yeah, Bill Musgrave, that's a good one. Ifo Ekpeolumu, a couple others out there. I like that. It's getting closer. You get week 0 games next week, so we at least get to see some things going on next week. We're a week away from watching some other teams play football, and then 2 weeks away from watching the first game, which should be pretty interesting.
Scott, you told me that you're in Montana for your granddaughter's first birthday.
I am, and actually, we did a full week. So what happened is my sons and I planned a 60th birthday celebration this year, but we had to make it work for everybody. So we ended up pushing it from when my normal birthday would be till August. We went to Denver we watched some baseball games. All 3 of us were in Denver for the week. We were there from Sunday through Thursday, watching baseball, having a good time, hanging out together. Then, because it's close enough, my youngest son and I drove down from Denver to Red Lodge, Montana, where he lives, because it's also my granddaughter's first birthday. She's the one that the people who know me know what happened last year. She was born with an issue that created some ICU moments that she was there for about 3 weeks. We were joined earlier in the week by my niece and her boyfriend. So it was actually just a really good week of family time ahead of the football season. So I was really happy and grateful to be able to kind of spend some time with them before it gets too crazy where I can't do much.
That's awesome. Being a grandpa is an incredible thing. Is this your first grandchild?
It is not. My stepson had a daughter a year earlier, and that interestingly, her birthday is 2 days after Renzi's birthday. So it's been intriguing. I had this conversation actually earlier this week with some people. I said, it's funny, my wife, when she was growing up, she was raised by her grandmother. So for her, being a grandmother was the best thing she could ever think of. And you almost have to go through like childhood so you can get there. For me, it was always being a dad. It was always being able to coach youth sports and go to concerts and go to school plays. That was the thing that I always look forward to. So this is a new experience. I'm excited to see what happens when they get a little bit older and there's those other things I get to do as a grandpa that, yes, it's awesome to watch, because for me, I stand back and I watch my son and I watch him with his daughter. And first of all, we had all boys between my wife and I. And so seeing them with daughters is a different experience in the first place. But watching him, it just takes me back in time to what it was like when he was a baby and when my older son was a baby. And that's the part to me that you don't know what it's going to feel like until you see it. And watching him this week with her has been awesome.
Well, that is awesome. And it is awesome of you to reach out and make time to visit with us on what is, one of those peak life experiences weekends. We appreciate it.
No problem. They're getting ready for the party and it's nap time anyway. So I told them I'm not going to sit there and bust. It's hard when you're hosting a party where you're going to have a couple dozen people there. They need some alone time too. They need some downtime away from me and their moms and their other dads, all those things. Just they need some free time. So I said, hey, guys, it's nap time. There's nothing I'm going to be doing while she's napping anyway. So I'm just going to hang out and do some writing and get some other stuff ready.
I'm a big believer in naps. I took one before we did this show.
I would love to take one, but I don't ever get time for naps. It's just what it is for me.
Now, you're one of those guys, I hung around with you a little bit. You're one of those guys who doesn't really need to sleep a lot. You're like one of those 3 a.m., 4 a.m. type of guys.
If I can use the word, my sleep habits are asinine. I sleep. I don't go to bed till usually midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I write at night after my wife goes to bed. She goes to bed early. She goes to bed at like 7:30, and I'll do my writing, research, all those things late at night. Get to bed at 1 o'clock, and I get up at 5:30. It's just what it is. I've never been able to break that habit. It's always been who I am. It's been that way since, oh gosh, my senior year of high school. So we're going on 42 years of living this life of 5-6 hours of sleep at max.
Yeah.
Even on vacation, I get 6 hours of sleep.
Wow. The hard driving man. I remember when we used to be at Duck Sports Authority and we'd get text messages from Mario Cristobal at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yes, it's those days were, I still get that kind of stuff, but Mario is a little bit more willing to communicate direct than some others that I get. I still get some, but not from everybody that I would like to get them from. But then again, 3 a.m, I mean, if I get a text or a call at 3 a.m, it's usually a bad day at my day job. That means something happened overnight if somebody's calling me, and those are calls I don't like. So I'm glad to not get 3 a.m. texts from coaches. I don't mind texts at 11 p.m. but I know that they hold the same kind of hours that I do, and so they have that life where they're always going to.
Well, that's probably part of your rapport with them and why you have such impeccable sources covering the Ducks. Man, you just got a new gig with Ducks Rising. Congratulations. Please tell us about that assignment and your role there.
So it's interesting. One, I want to make sure, I know that Travis was on your show and he talked about content is where any of the pay that they give out to people. So to be clear, I don't take pay from Ducks Rising. I agreed to this and we started talking, I think literally the day it got announced that On3 had acquired Rivals, we started talking about whether I wanted to work with them or not. And at the time, I wasn't sure. And not because I didn't want to work for them, but because I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I knew I wasn't going to join On3. Nothing personal. I just didn't feel like that was the right fit for me. So I was debating what I was going to do. And I kind of liked the concept. At the time, we had just had the first granddaughter, and I knew that my son was getting close with their granddaughter. And so I was just thinking, what am I going to do with my time? And do I really want to spend the same amount of time away from family that I do when I was writing for DSA and then the publisher of Duck Sports Authority on Rivals? And so it sort of worked out. And I said, I just did my independent thing. And then we talked a little bit more and they said they wanted to up their written content because Travis texted me and asked me about it. And I said, what's that look like for you? Because I don't have time to do 7 articles a week for you with my stuff. It just wouldn't work. And I don't want to do 2 and 3 podcasts a week. It's hard to do for me because of my schedule and everybody else's schedule not meshing. But he came up with the written content and I said, okay, let's give 2 exclusives to you. I will take all of my free content and I'll publish it there so that your members don't have to go out to my site to read my free content. They can read it there. This gets you 5 articles a week from me on your site where your people don't have to leave. And the only thing I asked is, hey, if you guys can promote my premium Substack stuff, that's all I asked for, because I don't do this for the income. The income is nice because it basically pays for my Hawaii trip to cover the Polynesian Bowl. So I don't take money from them. These 2 exclusive columns, it'll be a lot more interesting when you get to the season because it's going to be, the Oregon Countdown is looking ahead to the game. And so it's kind of a deeper, more exclusive look ahead, an analytical look ahead to the game. And the Sunday Huddle for them will be a look backward, what we expected, what happened, and what we learned from it. I'm excited about it. I've done the first couple of those, and I think they turned out really well, and I'm excited about doing that and just being able to do a little bit more with the written content because I can do that at night pretty easily, and I don't mind spending a couple extra hours a week with additional things.
Well, folks, Scott is one of the most insightful writers I've ever read following sports. And to get a chance to read his content at Ducks Rising, you can go to ducksrising.com, become a member. You can join for as little as $10 a month, and you'll get some of his insights on duck football during the year, which will help you understand the game better and become a better fan. You can also find him at Duck Sports Central, which is ducksportscentral.com, I think. Is that correct, Scott?
That's correct. Yeah. And the Substack site is ducksports.substack.com. That's where I put more premium information. I'll keep recruiting information in there. I will keep more detailed analysis during the season. My 5th quarter report, which is kind of a mix of a report card and a summary analysis following the game, looking at some of the advanced metrics, advanced data stuff. I'll use that as a premium thing as well. And I like doing that because that helps the people who are helping pay for my trip to Hawaii continue to get content throughout the year. It's not, I don't want to just say, and I did, I think 25 articles to Polynesian Bowl this year. That's 1 week, 25 articles. That's a lot. But I don't want that to be that people pay me money just for 25 articles. So we keep creating exclusive premium content there as well, so that we can kind of grow everything from that perspective.
Wow. Well, continued success to you. I love what you do. Now, the Polynesian Bowl, you forged a lot of relationships on that trip.
I do. It's because we'll sit and chat with parents a lot during the week. And even this year, while Oregon didn't get the commitment from him, we did some good relationships with some people in other places that committed elsewhere. And you think of, I talked to a guy named Todd Robeson a lot while I was out there and when I came back. And he was Ismail Kamara's local family in Texas, and good relationships there. I'll have a great relationship with Todd forever, just because of the time we spent chatting during the week. We went and had some time together, hanging out, learning a little bit about Ismail and his journey. Same with Pancho Lalau's family. Great relationships with them, and I met a lot of different people there that I maintain relationships with, not because of who their sons are, but because of who they are. And I think for me, that's a great time, because my wife and I get to really kind of create this fellowship, if we'll borrow some terms from the staff, with other people and learn a lot about different cultures and different people and different families. And it's a rewarding experience from everything that I've done. And we've done it 8 straight years now. So it's been a really great time.
Plus, you get to be in Hawaii, white sand and blue water. Is there anything
I get
better?
To be in Hawaii, and I get to be in Hawaii while I'm working. And I get done usually during the week, because the practices are at 11, except for the day that they practice up in North Shore. So we get done pretty early in the day. I get done writing by probably 3 o'clock. That gives me, several good hours of just hanging out time at the beach or wherever we want to go. We'll go to the zoo when we're out there. We'll go up on the North Shore day. We'll go find some food up north, some garlic shrimp or some other things that we like up there. Just kind of explore and hang out in places that we love hanging out.
Awesome. We'll look forward to seeing those stories. Now, Duck Sports Central, you wrote Friday about Oregon's receiver group. Position coach Ross Douglas is taking an approach with them that's a bit unique in college football.
It is. And I think it's, when you have a wide receiver room that's as stacked as Oregon's is, and it's as stacked as it's ever been in the history of watching football for me at Oregon anyway. There's been some other schools that have had stacked wide receiver rooms. You can't recruit people that say, I have to have the most catches, because then you'll only have one decent receiver on the team, and everybody else would just be kind of that guy that's okay. And so when you get 4, 5, 6 elite receivers, guys that are 5 stars or pushing 5 stars, you have to find a way to make sure that they're all happy and that they're fitting in with the culture. And I think they've done a really good job of finding guys that understand that it's not just about, I have to have the most catches. It's, I have to have the impact I can have when I have it. Because if you have, let's say the team only has Dante Moore as an elite receiver and everybody else is kind of a role player, what's going to happen? Teams are going to double him. They're going to bracket him every single play. And then you're going to have to hope your role players are good enough. And in this case, these guys understand that you can't get every catch, but you can make an impact when it comes to you, because there's going to be a time that Dante Moore gets single coverage and he's going to be able to make a play. There's going to come a time when Evan Stewart gets the coverage that dictates that he gets the play. And they care about winning more than they care about stats. And that is the most important thing that we're going to find from this receiver room, is if they care about winning. And that means sometimes they got to be the guy that blocks. And they're all, we saw the video of Dante Moore last year with his block in the end zone on a big play. I think those are the kinds of things that make culture as strong as it is at Oregon right now.
Unselfishness. You can accomplish great things if nobody cares who gets the credit. Another point you
Exactly.
made in the art. Thank you. Another point you made in the article was that the guy who runs the decoy route is every bit as important on a play.
It is, because that still draws attention, and you still have to. That decoy route has to also be something that could be a run, could be a pass to that side, so you don't have people ignoring the route. It can't be an obvious decoy route. So you have to have that ability for that route to draw some people away, because sometimes that means you're opening the middle of the field. Sometimes it means you're creating something on the post. Sometimes it means you're doing, you look down for the bubble screen because everything else is well covered, and you've got this guy coming out of the backfield that is wide open. And Jeff Schwartz showed a play from last year where they showed a play action pass, and it was Jeremiah Johnson preview. He showed a play action pass. One of the running backs was basically out in the flat as the check down. And if that had to happen, he would have been wide open for a good 6-7 yard gain at the best. And maybe he breaks a tackle and makes it a bigger gain. It's those kinds of things, the route trees, the concepts, the route concepts, the play designs, and the execution. You can't, and again, we'll use a semi swear word, you can't half-ass it as a receiver. If you think I'm option 4, if you do that, you give it away, and you can't do that. And these guys aren't giving it away. And that's going to be the critical part of success at that position.
It's going to be fun to watch that unfold. Every time I think about the speed and talent and depth in this group, I almost want Drew Maringer to just line them up in 4 wides and just air it out.
I had this conversation with somebody recently. I can't remember who, but I said, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, Jalen Lott would have been an instant starter. And I don't see that this year, because you got Evan Stewart, you've got Jeremiah McClellan, you've got DeCorian Moore. Maybe Strap Hooks is ahead of him, maybe he's not. But at best, he's coming on the field as a backup wide receiver. And that is an impressive thing, because he's got the speed, he's got the hands, he's got the understanding of football. He's got the understanding of the big stage. I mean, his dad was an Olympian. These are things that matter, and he's not going to start. That is something that I think was unheard of even 5 years ago for a player of his talent and his caliber.
It boggles the mind. It's exciting. He looks really good in the practice clips that have been released. Made some big plays already in practice.
He does, yes.
Yeah, it's outstanding. I had Dave Martu on the show a couple of days ago, and he told me a couple of things that surprised me. I wanted to check them out with you. Maybe you have a different point of view. According to his testing of the numbers, only 14% of games are won in the middle 8. The middle 8 is no more, in his conclusion was that the middle 8 is no more important than any other period in the game.
So you have to take it in context, because in college football, the talent gap in many games means that those games are won in the opening 4 minutes. When Oregon's ahead 21-0, well, of course the middle 8 doesn't mean anything. The middle 8 means a lot when the games are tight. And I can't say that I have the stats on that. If it's a tight game, if it's a single score result, the middle 8 can have a bigger impact, because if you lose that, let's say you lose a 23-20 game and somebody scored a touchdown in the middle 8 and then controlled the clock to open the third quarter because they won that, they got the ball last in the second quarter, got the ball first in the third quarter. They're controlling a strong structure of the game in a tight game. But how many games are won because the team is just better than the other? So when you break it down, I can't answer the question statistically because I didn't look it up. But the 14% probably relates to the reality that most college football games are not close enough for that middle 8 to have a huge impact. But if you go back and look at the middle 8 against Ohio State, I believe Oregon won it, and Oregon won by a point at Autzen 2 years ago. That middle 8 mattered. And I think it's still a way to keep your team focused in the middle of the game, especially in a tight game. And you have to approach the middle 8 the same way you would in a blowout versus a tight game. If you want the team to focus on the middle 8 in a tight game, you've got to get them focused on that every single game. And it's something that matters to coaches because it shows some efficiency information. Again, didn't look into the analytics of that, but that's kind of what I think is likely happening.
Somebody sent me a stat this week that Oregon is 41-0 when they win the first quarter.
Not surprising. It's because if you win the first quarter and you build a lead, especially under Dan Lanning, the defense has been good enough and the offense has been efficient enough at controlling the game time that you're going to, if you build a lead, they're going to be able to hold on to it. That doesn't mean they always can or always will. Again, let's say you jump out 7-0 Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Ohio State probably still wins that game. But, they've been really good early in games in his career.
Yeah, they have. They've been really good. This team, I just feel like these guys, Scott, have the potential to just win every period, the middle eight, the first eight, the last eight, and everything in between.
I think this team especially, the defense I think is going to be better this year because they have better multiplicity. And I talked about this yesterday with Ryan. So when you got a guy like Tank Jones coming in and you think he's an edge rusher, he's going to be 250 pounds. No, he's now 300 pounds. Now he's able to do more than just come off the edge. He's able to fill a Jordan Birch type role where he can be a straight hands down in the dirt kind of defensive lineman. He can come off the edge. He can do different things that create better options for the defense. You've got a guy like Nas Wyatt who comes in this year at 245 pounds versus the 220 at best last year. That means he's going to be able to make plays. Maybe even he rotates into inside linebacker in some sets where he can do things that he may not have been able to do a year ago because he can shed blocks. He can do a few things that his strength and without losing speed is able to enable him to be better this year. A guy like Matthew Johnson, who's up to 315 pounds from the 265 he came in at 2 years ago. That's a guy that's going to create some different depth looks for this defense that help this defense control games in a way where if the offense is off or if it's a hailstorm in Illinois, you can deal with some things offensively to control the clock as well. That's to me something they couldn't do even under the person who professed to want the game to be physical. They couldn't control the games when they needed to under Mario. And right now we're seeing that when it's a good tight game, Lanning and the offense and defense can control the flow of the game. They did it against Iowa. They did it against Wisconsin 2 years ago. There's a lot of different things they've done that weren't happening in the past.
In the Big Ten, you've got to be able to win different kinds of football games. And you're always going to have one or two that just turn out to be grinded out sort of games like Iowa and Wisconsin last year.
Yeah, and I think, having a quarterback that can make throws like Dante made to Benson in Iowa, those are important things. You can't make that game just by handing the ball off 48 times in a row or whatever it was Oregon State did in 2022 to Oregon. You can't win that game by handing that off because that defense is too good for Oregon to just keep pounding it up the middle because you can't control the game. You can't get into scoring position if you're getting a 3-and-out or a 5-and-out, right? So the ability to make those plays when it matters, he made the play when it mattered, and that was a brilliant throw. And I don't think people know how good that throw was until you put it in slow motion. You realize that when you have a defensive back that's quote unquote in phase, meaning he's got his hands on his elbow on the receiver and he can turn and look, and you still make a throw that's so tight that he can't make a play on the ball. It was impressive.
He put it in a window this big with 23 seconds to go in the game, needing a field goal to win.
Exactly. And that was a team that they lose that game, they probably still get in the playoff, but it changes the structure of what that playoff looks like.
Yeah, that was a big one for the Ducks and a thrill to watch. Sappington made a kick too. That was not an automatic kick. I mean, that was not a gimme by any means.
It was 39 yards in rain and somewhat swirling winds. So yeah, that was a tough kick, and it was impressive. And that's the kind of things where when they say you have to win all three phases, you really do. You have to be good in all three phases in a tight game in order to make that game work.
I'm a little worried, Scott, about that third phase. I mean, the Ducks have coached that phase really well, but they got two newcomers in those spots this year, the punter and kicker.
I'll say I don't know how much of the comments made are about the special teams by the staff are coach speak and how much are real. I have a hunch that some of it is coach speak as they're trying to get their guys more dialed in. Gage here he can kick 40-yard field goals, 50-yard field goals. It's really just a matter of, does he have the nerves of steel it takes to do that in a tight game? That's going to be the question that we'll see. He made a ton of great kicks as a kickoff specialist. He has the leg. He has the ability. Can he do it in tight games? We won't know until we see a tight game. Hard to tell with our punting what's going to happen there. I think we're okay there. I don't think it's as bad as they made it sound after practices. I think that's how you keep your team engaged, because when you have specialists like that you only get a certain amount of times in a game, one mistake is like a quarterback making 3 mistakes. And so you have to really keep them and teach them how to stay mentally focused in the moment when they have it. And so you have to create as many moments as you can and then see what happens and kind of make them understand what that moment looks like. And I think sometimes the coach speak helps specialists more than anybody else.
His teammates are calling the Iceman. Let's just hope that Gage Urich turns out to be the Iceman.
Yes. Yeah. I feel pretty good about him. I think, no kicker that I know of has been perfect his entire career. So he's going to have a miss. And of course, everybody's going to have their miniature panic attacks if he does miss a field goal they think he should make. But I'm pretty confident in his ability.
Good. Well, we'll see how that one unfolds. When we talk about the offense and defense, Bartu had another stat that really made me raise my eyebrow. If you are not in the top 3 in points per snap on either offense or defense, you have 0 chance in the last 26 years of winning a national title. Not top 5, not top 10, but all of the national championship winners of the last 26 years were in the top 3 in points per snap on one side of the ball or the other.
That's not surprising to me at all. Because when you look back, and part of this is outside of last year's championship, part of this is that up until now, everybody that's won a national championship has also been an elite defense and or offense, because they had the talent stacked that currently Oregon has stacked. You look at Alabama's and Clemson's and Georgia's, and you look at the talent that were on those teams. There's no coincidence that they were dominating the line of scrimmage both ways and scoring more points and or holding other teams to fewer points than anybody in the country. So that part's not a surprise. I think the other one was up until Indiana, every national championship game over that period had a team that won that had at least, I believe, 3 consecutive top 5 recruiting classes. Talent matters in college football. It's not, as much as we loved what Chip Kelly did, that's an anomaly. Being an elite scheme doesn't win games against elite talent very often. Chip Kelly did some things that were unexpected because of that, and yet that team was in the top of scoring average per point snap based on their offense back then. So that would have still made that, but scheme doesn't generally win as much as talent in college football. And coaching matters, scheme matters a little bit. You can't run 3 yards in a cloud of dust the entire game if you can't throw the ball. The reason Miami was in the championship game last year is because Carson Beck could throw the ball. They wouldn't have got there if they had a guy that all he did was hand it off. And nothing to poke fun at any particular quarterbacks, but if it's Anthony Brown on that Miami team last year, they're not in the championship game. And Carson Beck may not be the best quarterback, but he was better than what we had seen prior from there. Cam Ward was pretty good at Miami as well, but they didn't have enough other weapons defensively to advance. So I'm not surprised by that. And I think Oregon can be up in that top tier, given what I expect the increase in Dante Moore to happen this year.
Talk about that, Scott. How big of a jump do you think we'll see from Dante Moore this year, and why?
I think massive. And I'll go back, and Doug, Scott, and Andrew, QB11, discussed this on the preseason preview they did of the Big Ten. And they were discussing the Oregon offense. And Bo Nix from 22 to 23, his passer rating improved by like 25 points. I think it was actually 23. I can't remember the number. And that's just because of second year in the system. and I know Dante Moore was in his first year in the system, or second year in the system last year, but he didn't have the same snap experience. He didn't have the same time in doing it on the field. Watching it and watching somebody else do it is not as good as doing it yourself. And, Bo Nix did it himself in 22. And then in 23, he made a massive leap. And I expect that kind of leap because I know how much work Dante Moore's put in this offseason about studying film and understanding the different things that he's going to see and getting better at recognizing them and recognizing what the proper checks are in those moments and not holding the ball too long, not running right into pressure. The mistakes that he made last year, those are the mistakes of a first-year starter. And while we can talk about he was a starter at UCLA, he only started 5 games at UCLA. He was a true first-year starter last year, and that team still got to the national semifinals. I expect a massive leap in his ability to do different things this year. I expect fewer interceptions, more touchdowns, and he's got better talent around him. The only question, and this I know probably the next question, the only question is, will the offensive line be cohesive enough and good enough for this team to take that next step?
I wasn't going to ask that question, but I'm glad you brought it up. Will they?
I think so. It's, and I'll say this on every place I've talked, and I'll say it in articles, I'll say it everywhere. The fact that this staff didn't feel the need to go out and overspend for an elite offensive tackle or an elite offensive guard and said, and I'm not to denigrate somebody else's capability, but they took a guy from Yale as the only portal transfer on the offensive line. That tells me that this staff truly believes the people in that room are good enough. We kept talking about Manny Iheanacho and Tommy Tofi coming in right away and potentially pushing for starting because they were highly rated. I watched Tommy in the Polynesian Bowl, and that dude has feet like no other 360-pounder I've ever seen. He's just got different movement ability than somebody I've seen at his size. But there's also guys that were making waves behind the scenes that we don't really know until we start hearing them during practice reports. Zaire Addison, Doug Utu, those guys are also taking steps and making this look like it. So when you say there could be a 8-man rotation, that's because Kavika Rogers has taken a step forward this year. Doug Utu's taken a step forward this year. Zaire Addison could be pushing for starting role this year. He's made that much of a leap in his understanding of the game. And then you add in Tommy and Manny, and you've got a really, really deeply talented room, even if it's young. And I think that's the part. The fact that Poncho is still there is really going to help the cohesion because that guy can communicate better than anybody I've ever seen from the center position. Jackson Powers Johnson was really good at his communication, but Poncho's better. And that's a compliment. Poncho has his drawbacks. He doesn't have the same lateral movement necessarily as others. And sometimes he loses blocks that he shouldn't lose, but his communication is going to keep that team cohesive and keep that line in check. And people are going to understand the roles. I know Zaire Addison is a big time student of the game. I watched him just basically inquire on everybody around him at the Polynesian Bowl, coaches, the head coaches, the staff, everybody around. He was asking questions about how to get better and not just how to be better at the technical part of the game, but how to be better at the mental part of the game, how to be ready for what he was about to face and his ability to be a student of the game. And Doug Utu is the same way. Those things are going to really translate to cohesiveness in a way that I think, are there going to be some blips? Of course there are. They're going to come out and they're going to experiment. And the first time somebody misses a block against Boise State, we're all going to have flashbacks to 2024 and the tight game that shouldn't have been tight. But I don't think this team has the same. This team is just so much more talented than that team was across the board at every position that even if there are mistakes, I don't expect it to create that kind of a clenching moment where we're clenching our fists saying, what's going to happen? They're going to make mistakes. We're going to think, and the coaches are going to get film and they're going to know, hey, this worked in practice. It didn't work here. We'll learn from it. But I'm really excited about this offensive line.
I am too, particularly because Ali Terry is the guy running the show.
Yeah. And there's a guy that 3 years in a row, Joe Moore Award finalist. Nobody else can claim that right now. And I think his ability to get these guys better throughout the season. You look at 2024, and this is going to be my favorite topic because I think that's where people are worried about this year because we didn't bring in any elite transfers. 2024, we had Charlie Pickard starting at center. We had Poncho over at guard, and we learned a lot of lessons. And if you look at the progression of that offensive line during the season, they got better. it was not noticeable. It's not like something jumps out on the stat line. You say, oh, that guy that only got 2 yards on his first carry is averaging 8 yards a carry at the end of the season. You can't see that in the offensive line progression, but they got better over the season. And I think we're going to see the same kind of progression this year.
Well, if we asked Dan Lanning this question, he would have evaded as only he can. How would you evaluate the progress of this team through the first 20 days of fall camp and where they are right now?
So because we don't see the actual stuff and we only hear what the coaches say, it's pretty tough to say what the progression has looked like. What I will say is the stuff they did in the offseason has made the implementation of the offense and defensive playbooks much more effective and efficient, because the team, the players, did a lot of work on their own in the offseason to understand everything, so that they were already, and I think, was it Chris Hampton? I said he said he felt like they were 2 weeks into camp already on the first practice. And that's a true thing. They were ahead of schedule coming into camp, and that being ahead of schedule has allowed them better evaluations of the team. I think the offensive line, while it's not set who the final 5 are yet, I think they have a pretty good idea of the 8 people who are going to compete for that spot. And the progress there has been impressive. The progress on the defensive line has also been impressive, with the depth, the ability of other people to come in and make plays. Tank Jones stood out to me in the spring game. He's standing out to the staff in the fall camp. And the depth and talent in the secondary is something that I don't know. I mean, I remember the 2019, the depth they had at secondary then, but this depth is even better. And I saw a stat, the size, when you're talking the shortest of the top 6 DBs that are on this team is 6 foot. You don't have any 5'10". You don't have any 5'9" DBs, and that's going to help against some of these bigger receivers. Are they going to stop Jeremiah Smith and the rest of the Ohio State receivers? I would say no. Are they going to be able to do better than they would have 2 years ago? Absolutely.
I think back to that Rose Bowl debacle and sitting in the stands just feeling we've gotten fooled again. But that defensive secondary averaged about 5'10", 170.
That, and there was that, and this is going to be the theme if Oregon sees a rematch anytime in the postseason. They lost the rematch. They were outcoached in the rematch part of it, because I don't know, and I don't want to say what they did or didn't do, but the self-scouting against the Ohio State win, I don't know that it got them everything they needed to get. I don't know that they expected Ohio State to come out and be as efficient that first 2 quarters as they were. And they may not have self-scouted right. They may have kind of took some things for granted in the self-scout. And that's the biggest part of what they need to grow this year is, how do they self-scout against a team they've already faced, or a team that presents problems they haven't seen? And that, because in the playoffs, sometimes you're going to get to the semifinal. It may not be a team you've already faced, but maybe a team that does something different than you've seen all year. And how do you self-scout, not just scout them, but self-scout to make sure that you're understanding what you need to do as a team to attack what they do well. And sometimes you have to see your own weaknesses and say, okay, how do we improve that? How do we not have those weaknesses become a flaw? The over-reliance on the pre-scripted plays showed up against Indiana. That first play, pre-scripted, and there wasn't even an option to check down based on the defense they saw. And I think everybody in the world knew what was going to come, and it did. And that everybody in the world, including the DB who did the pick 6. Those are the kinds of things that I think Drew Maringer, as quote unquote the scientist, has a challenge, but I think he's a different play caller than Will Stein. And I think that's going to show up. I know he had a lot to do with everything last year, but that's going to show up this year.
Well, Scott, you've been very generous with your time, and we appreciate you. You get to now enjoy the joyous grandpa experience of seeing a beautiful little girl smear cake all over her face. We appreciate you. It's been great to talk with you, and I hope we get to see you again. Have a great season and a lovely time with your family.
Awesome. Thanks, Dale. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Talk to you soon.